Namaskar, everyone. Hello. My heartfelt gratitude to all of you for joining today. In the previous talks on Sri Aurobindo's book, Synthesis of Yoga, we have talked about the definition of yoga, which Sri Aurobindo expresses as a methodized effort towards self-perfection at every level of the being, whether it is physical or mental, vital, and a communion with the divine in all its forms. We have talked about the 3 steps of the nature, the threefold life, the various levels of human life. In this chapter, which is called The Systems of Yoga, Sri Aurobindo talks about various processes of these methodized effort. And in these various processes, there have been different systems which have been created in the rich history of Indian yoga. Before we take up these systems of yoga, let us talk about a concept of Trinity, which Sri Aurobindo describes in the first few pages of the chapter. The number 3 is very important and very frequently appearing in the subject of yoga and spirituality. The Holy Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, or the 3 aspects of Prakriti, Tamas, Rajas, Sattva, or for that matter, even in this book, some of the previous chapters, threefold life, 3 steps of nature. So there are lots of 3s in spirituality and yoga. And here in this beginning of this chapter, Sri Aurobindo describes another trinity or another 3 which is essential to yoga. And he writes, before there can be any possibility of yoga, there must be, as it were, 3 consenting parties to the effort. So for any possibility of yoga to happen, there needs to be 3 consenting parties. One is God, second is nature, and third is human soul. Or in more abstract language, the transcendental, the universal, and the individual. So let's look at all these 3 one by one, the individual, the universe, and the transcendental. Let's start with the individual soul or a human soul. The concept of human soul is easier to understand if we look at it as that part of us which doesn't get destroyed even when the physical body dies. So it is an essence of that part which is immortal within us. Another way to understand the concept, experience it, is to ask oneself, what is it of me that will be left if there are no thoughts and emotions within me? One can ponder on this question. Would there be just an emptiness? Would there be just a nothingness? Or would there be an awareness which will be left behind? an awareness which is aware of the thoughts and emotions and of these physical being. It is that awareness which does not sleep, and even when we are sleeping, it is fully aware. And we all know the kind of sleep that we have had through the night. Even though we were in deep sleep, we know we had a very deep sleep. Or if we didn't have a deep sleep, we know that we didn't have such a deep sleep. So there is an inner knowing which stems from this awareness, which can be also called as consciousness. And this consciousness is vast and can be localized within and around an individual and may be called as the soul or the individual soul. This individual soul, if it gets clouded with ignorance, then the ego and the pseudo soul, which is an accumulation of the desires within, takes over. And when it is purified and cleared, then the deep aspiration within this soul shines. The aspiration for perfection, the aspiration for the divine communion. And when that happens, it becomes the first consenting party to the practice of yoga. Let's talk about the second consenting party, which is the universe. Universe or nature, as we have discussed in the past chapters, or maybe called as the Prakriti, is vast, and it is full of various different kinds of phenomena, various different kinds of illusions. And an individual aspiring soul is bombarded with these phenomena at every moment. And it is especially a challenge to deal with these illusions, especially during the purification phase of an aspiring soul. And that purification phase is in itself a very long-lasting phase for all of us. And when each of these triggers or illusions or events or phenomena which happen from outside, we generally observe two kinds of responses within an individual. One is to either get influenced by those events, the other is to in some way get averse from those events. We can understand this from a simple example of even watching a movie where we know that it is not real and it is just a story. But when some of the most pleasant things arrive in the movie, then we see ourselves getting influenced into it and almost to a degree get identified with the story. And then immediately when there are some not so pleasant events which are happening, we also see a part of us feeling averse in that moment. If this influence and aversion happens within us, then it is very natural for us to then react to those events. A reaction is almost an automatic form which happens from our subconscious. For example, if somebody A slaps B, then it automatically feels like a reaction for B to either slap back A or run away or do something which is like a natural reaction for that person, because that immediately becomes a moment of aversion and we react out of our subconscious mind. But in the same situation, we also have another choice, which is to take the position of a witness, Sakshi Bhava. where we witness everything without getting impacted. We witness what is happening outside, and we witness also the kind of subconscious emotional reactions and feelings it arouses within us, and we acknowledge them and let them pass. And then we have the 360-degree option of choosing what kind of response one would like to give in that situation. It may be a response of compassion, what is going on in A's life that he has chosen to slap me. It may still be giving that person a slap back in self-defense, but it would not be an automatic reaction. It would be a well-reflected, well-thought-of 360-degree response. So this is an option or a choice that an individual soul has in dealing with the universe and its illusions. But universe, being so vast, always has bigger and bigger, stronger and stronger illusions to create influence and aversion within a soul, and hence the importance of universe also becoming a friend, universe also becoming a consenting party in the practice of yoga, which can happen when there is a certain sense of harmony, a certain sense of oneness with the universe, when also there is a larger purpose to the yoga, which brings universe and upliftment of the universe, evolution of the universe, also as a part of the purpose of yoga. But even more important is for the individual soul to have the blessings and the grace and the light and the strength of something beyond this universe. And that something which is beyond this universe is the transcendent being, or the absolute formless being. This absolute transcendent or formless being, Sri Aurobindo in the book Life Divine says it is indescribable. And he quotes Upanishads in saying that the transcendent is the one which one can't describe through neither neti, which is by saying that it is not this, it is not this, it is not this, because it is infinite, it is all-embracing and is a part of everything. Nor it can be described by yeti, it is this only, because it would be unfair to lock the infinite transcendent being into any one particular mental idea. But still, if one has to make an attempt at describing the transcendent being, and the intellect has to hold the transcendent being with some degree of understanding, Sri Aurobindo says it can happen only through infinite logic. It cannot happen through finite logic, which we are so used to in our life, that we are these finite beings, we are this finite body. With due respect to finite logic, which is also important, but we are also this infinite being, we are also this infinite consciousness also. And this logic is essential to understanding the transcendent being. Infinite logic does not just apply to spirituality, it is also a part and parcel of our daily life as well. Because even though we are finite in some ways in the physicality, but even in this physicality, infinite possibilities exist. So we are, and this infinite logic can be applied to our daily life phenomena as well. For example, let's say we have to reach somewhere in 1 hour. By finite logic, one may plan and say, this is the priority for me, and these are the things, these are the possible finite options that I have. Let me hurry up and do these things. But in the same situation, one can also become aware of infinite possibilities, infinite ways of reaching there. One can also become aware of the infinite abundance present in the present moment, and how we as a soul are an infinitely empowered being, and bring in all the creativity, all the intensity into every moment, moving forward towards the goal. And the two paradigms, one can immediately see the difference. In one feels very freed and expressive, and in one, sometimes we feel very caged. But both of them are very important in a way to human living, the practical living, and both have their importance. But when it comes to understanding and experiencing the transcendent, let's for a moment leave behind the identification with the finite and use the infinite logic, which is also a capacity of our intellect. For not just understanding, but experiencing the transcendent being, let's go through a short process. I would request all of you to become a part of this process to experience the absolute being. I would request you all to sit up straight and close your eyes. We start by seeking the blessings of Sri Aurobindo and Mother and all the ascended masters in helping us, aiding us go through this experience. We take our attention between our eyebrows and visualize a point of light. Now we visualize the whole physical body as blue light. It is like our whole body is made of a deep bluish color. We start gathering this blue light towards the point of light between our eyebrows. We start from the toes, gathering all the blue light from the toes, from our feet, the calf, the thighs. We gather all the blue light from our hips, tummy, chest, and slowly from our hands, our forearms, arms, shoulder, neck, and all the blue light from our head to the center of the eyebrows. We visualize a ball of golden light, a ball of joy all around us. And let it expand to the whole meditation hall. To the whole Aurobindo Ashram. To the whole New Delhi and India and Mother Earth. We allow this ball of light and joy to expand all across the solar system, the Milky Way galaxy, and to the whole infinite, ever expanding universe. We see all the souls as tiny beams of light swimming in this ball of infinite joy. We ask ourselves, am I this physical body? Maybe not. Maybe I am this infinite joy of the Spirit. My Divine Father is also this infinite joy of the Spirit, and we are one. Now bringing our attention back between the eyebrows. For the moment, respectfully and lovingly leaving the physical body behind, we take this point of light upwards, above the meditation hall, into the sky. Beyond the sky, beyond the universe, to the source, to the source of all the love, to the source of all the compassion, to the source of all joy and power, the Supreme Being, the source of infinite peace. Our Divine Father. We merge with the source. We thank our Divine Father. and gradually start coming back, spreading all the love, joy, and peace around to the entire universe, into the sky, into the meditation hall, bringing the point of light back between the eyebrows, into our heart, into our navel, and connecting back to the core of Mother Earth. We can open our eyes whenever we are ready, gently. So I hope many of us were able to connect to some degree and with the transcendent being or the supreme being. The degree of our connection would vary for all of us depending on our makeup, our own unique system, the degree of our sincerity, of aspiration, the degree of our concentration, and lots of other factors. But one thing that would be common to all of us is that this experience would have been re-energizing and rejuvenating for all of us. And this transcendent being connection experience and this rejuvenating or re-energizing experience happens to all of us every day in sleep, where knowingly or unknowingly we are connecting to this element. So, whether we know it, whether we acknowledge it or not acknowledge it, it is there and it can be experienced, it cannot be completely understood. And somewhere the grace of this transcendent being is an absolute necessity in the path of yoga, and it is the third consenting party in the Holy Trinity that we just discussed, which is the individual soul and the universe and the transcendent being. And because of its importance in any philosophy or religion or system of yoga, the concept of transcendent is always there, whether in form of a supreme soul or in a form of God or Ishvara or the Lord. It is always there. And it is to this supreme being all the effort is directed. And as Sri Aurobindo writes beautifully, who also gives the illuminating touch and the strength to attain. So we direct our effort towards it, and then this power also gives us the illuminating touch and the strength to attain itself. Next is another beautiful line written by Sri Aurobindo. Equally true is the complementary idea so often enforced by the yoga of devotion. So there is a complementary idea here as we seek the divine. So he writes, transcendent is, as the transcendent is necessary to the individual and sought after by him, so also the individual is necessary in a sense to the transcendent and sought after by it. So, as we seek the transcendent and transcendent is necessary to us, so we are also necessary to the Supreme Being. We are very important and necessary, and He also seeks us. And this is one of the cornerstones or one of the key concepts in Bhakti Yoga. It's a mutual seeking of the two. And it is also very important from the system of psychology as well, where many a times we carry certain, because of the emotions of guilt and shame within us and around us, the concept of fear of punishment, the theory of karma being used in terms of punishment, that sometimes we don't feel worthy of the divine love or worthy of the divine. But this re-emphasizes to us that no matter what karma we do, of course there will be an equal and opposite consequences of what we do, but the divine always seeks us. Divine seeks us unconditionally, whether we are doing the best possible deeds or not doing the most beautiful things or most kind things in the world. The divine unconditionally, lovingly seeks everyone equally. And that leads us to a third kind of trinity that Sri Aurobindo describes, where we are the bhaktas and the Supreme Being is the Bhagwan. And in the process of seeking, the Bhagwan reveals to us the Bhagavad, which is the divine revelation of love and truth. So Bhakti, Bhakta, Bhagavan and Bhagavad is another form of Trinity, Holy Trinity. There are similar trinities Sri Aurobindo describes in Karma Yoga or in Jnana Yoga and many more. But there are certain, just like there are these holy trinities, there are also certain dysfunctional trinities around us. When we look at world from the view of egoism, and psychology, just to give you an example, defines one of them as Karpman triangle, which we see very often in our relationships in daily life when we act out of egoism. So just to take an example, very often, let's say there are two people who are in conflict with each other. One takes up the position of the victim and the other takes up the position of the aggressor. And the completion of the triangle happens when the victim seeks for a rescuer or a pleaser. For example, if husband and wife are not having the most cordial relationship, then one feels like a victim and seeks for somebody to be the rescue for them, whether it is an idea or is it a person. So that person becomes the rescuer and they see the spouse as the aggressor. But when you look at the same thing from the point of view of the spouse, the other person seems like the aggressor and they themselves feel like the victim. So it is largely a point of view and egoism playing games with us, and we keep switching roles between all three and never really experience the true joy and love in a relationship, which always stems when we take up and view it from the position of our soul and embrace the Holy Trinities in our daily life relationships.